Was the Bucs offense really as bad as it looked at times on Sunday? That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listener review every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs. He is Evan Klosky at EKlosky WTSP. We are your credential members of the media covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Evan is, of course, on 10 Tampa Bay, 10tampabay.com, and the 10 Tampa Bay Plus app. And I am here with you 5 days a week along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. What the Bucs need to do to snap the primetime losing streak. And, of course, Evan's crystal ball returns. That's all coming up in a little bit.
A little rusty myself. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should have done. I'm sure we're going to get into it.
The score was pretty spot on.
Yeah.
I had 2017. It was 23-20. Player of the game, bowl prediction, not so much.
Well, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but maybe, just maybe, the crystal ball needed some preseason snaps the same way Baker needed some preseason snaps. But we are going to start this one off with your thoughts on that win over Atlanta. Shout out David Shealy, because Evan, it was not pretty. Baker looked rusty. The offense had a tough time getting going. There were some defensive issues, but a win is a win. So let's start with your biggest takeaways on the offensive side of the ball.
Well, on the offensive side of the ball, just pretty disjointed to start. And when you look at the stats, it's not the sexiest, right? So, 260 total yards of offense, not what you love to see. 4.6 yards per play. Yes, they got north of 100 rushing yards, but Baker Mayfield was the leading rusher with 39 yards. Bucky, 14 of 37. These are not good things. Third down, 7 of 14. Grizz still kind of has his fastball there, but certainly an offense that has a lot left to improve upon. And I'm not going to say this is like a panic button type of thing. They threw out Barton at left tackle, Bredesen at center, Michael Jordan at left guard. There's, no Godwin, no McMillan, right? To say that this team was going to be humming on all cylinders, especially, for a chunk of guys who didn't play for most of the preseason, would be fooling ourselves. In last week's episode, I said my expectation was we were going to leave that game being like, whoa, the narrative was, what is up with the offense that we all fell in love with last year, and that defensively they were going to be a little bit better, or that they were going to be more impressive. And the defense kind of didn't pull its side of the bargain up in what I was preaching last week, but certainly offensively was kind of what I expected. So I wasn't too surprised by it. If there is anything to take away from this, and I do want to put an asterisk because one of the drives was heavily influenced by a tremendous punt return from Cam Johnson. But here were how the drive started, right? First quarter, 3-and-out. So, okay, they got the rust off. Then second quarter, field goal, touchdown, punt. It was a 3-and-out. Then missed field goal, touchdown, punt, which that punt was on the drive that Baker screwed up the pass to Cade Otton deep, who was wide open, touchdown. So if we get past the first quarter of the 3-and-outs, they only punted twice. And one of them, if they execute, is a tutty. and it should be a 30-20 result, right? So if we're looking for positives on this offense, that would be my positive spin, is that once they kind of found their footing in this game, they started putting up points. Now, you want touchdowns over field goals, but hey, if you can cash in on every drive, right? I mean, that's going to be a winning formula, certainly with what this defense can do. It was kind of very much like last year, where they're not going to necessarily, outside of some outlier games last year, they'll keep you in the fight, right? But not necessarily turn the ball over, not necessarily generate a lot of sacks or the negative plays, I should say, even though they had 7 tackles for a loss, which was a big thumbs up. But yeah, we'll get into the defense in a second.
Yeah, well, and it would be nice if Chase McLaughlin had made his kicks. That was.
We're going to
weird.
Give him a free pass. It was in a dome, which makes it even weirder. We're going to give him a free pass for week 1. All right. Chase has been so damn good his entire career with Tampa Bay. Like, I'm going to allow him to have this one stinker. If it trickles into Monday Night Football,
we're going to be
a little bit concerned. But let's write this off as a week 1 whoopsie doodle.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he had some bad food the night before, wasn't feeling too great, affected his – I don't know. All I know is that if he has another performance like that, I'm going to stop calling him Illinois legend Chase McLaughlin. All right, defensively, Evan, Voss had a rough day. He was even benched at one point. Not nearly as many sacks as we kind of expected, given the Atlanta offensive line issues, some missed opportunities for takeaways. What were your big takeaways on the defensive side?
Yeah, so 3 balls should have been intercepted or could have been intercepted, right? One, a lot of people yell at Zion for the one that smacked off Vita's helmet. I'm a little bit more forgiving on that one because the rotation of the ball is so much different after, it's kind of wobbling on you. So you're going low, you're catching a wobbler. But one of those 3 has to be picked. That's been everything we've seen in the preseason, training camp, OTAs, and it didn't come to fruition in the game. Forcing only 1 sack, I think part of that was the Falcons' game plan. They really got the ball quickly out of Penix's hands. They also have their own offensive line issues, so they were really on top of it. So I don't necessarily blame the defense. Yaya Diaby was supposed to have a big sack in that game. Jamel Dean had a penalty on that play, completely negated it. That penalty had nothing to do with Diaby. So it wasn't even like, it was a holding. Well, that's, of course, why Diaby got the sack. No, he got the sack, and he got screwed out of it by Dean. That had nothing to do with the play. And but as far as positives are concerned, 4th team since Bijan Robinson was drafted by the Falcons to hold the Falcons to 2.5 rushing yards or less. That was a big deal. Looks like the rushing defense is exactly what it's supposed to be. And I know that they had Bijan doing great things as a pass-catching back. Certainly a trend we saw in week 1 overall in the NFL, something that the Buccaneers should learn from, is that a lot of teams were utilizing the running back in the passing game. That was a heavy emphasis across the league. But certainly the rushing defense, as we expected, was awesome. And for the most part, they did their duties there in the red zone. It got a little wonky there at the end. I think they pooped out at the end of that game. You mentioned Voss. I thought he actually was one of the players that got stronger as the game went on. Yes, he made a couple of mental errors, which those are unacceptable. The physical stuff we can all live with, but I thought he was going on a stretch there towards the end where he kind of caught a heater, found himself again. So hopefully, he's just going to stack, some of this rust off and stack some of these days and become a little bit of what we hope he could be. But yeah, certainly a lot of fans are having the PTSD of KJ Britt, where we entered the season being like, oh man, we're excited for this guy. And then it's like, oh no, what is happening? But yeah, I think overall, I would argue maybe a little bit better than the offense, but it kind of was complimentary football in a way of just little ups and downs and kind of, the defense outside of that first play. I thought they had a great run there of of making things happen, and then the offense caught up, and then the defense was slagging off a little bit. So, I nothing that kind of wows me or alarms me outside of the Chase McLaughlin thing, which we'll give another week.
Yeah, both sides of the ball did just enough to get the win. And yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think after Voss was benched and Deion Jones came on for a couple of plays, and then Voss got his opportunity again, I think that's really when he stepped up and having a better game.
And I will say very quickly, like on paper, the Bucs should not have won this game. They lost the time of possession battle by nearly 10 minutes. They lost the total yard. Yeah, I mean, total yards by 100. They did not force a turnover. They had one sack. So on paper, it was like they should have lost this game. But I think it goes back to what Baker said after the contest, that a year ago, they were not winning these coin flip games. Last year, it felt like they lost all the coin flip games, especially in primetime. So for them to win this game when maybe they shouldn't have, again, that's a really good sign, because we don't complain or cry about wins. Wins are wins, no matter how they look. Gritty, not pretty, I don't care. You get the dub. And the fact that they won that maybe is a little bit of positive regression for last season. But to me, it's also a sign that if they can win that game, like, oh my, like that's pretty good.
Yeah, an ugly win is always better than a pretty loss. Speaking of losses, what do the Bucs need to do to finally win in prime time? That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The opening whistle blows on a new repair. Get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters, and their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. Let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. Right now, you can grab tickets to the Bucs home opener against the Jets with those epic 1976 throwbacks on full display for under $100. And it's not just sports. I'm not kidding when I tell you I just got concert tickets for my sons and I for next week with a zone deal. And let's just say I haven't paid that little for a concert ticket in over 20 years. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every single day. All right, the Bucs are getting ready to head to Houston this weekend for Monday Night Football against the Texans. The Texans lost to the Rams, and while their defense looked great, I mean, as advertised, you would expect that from the Houston defense. That offensive line in Houston is a problem. It was already arguably the worst in the league. Now they lose their starting center to a high ankle sprain for multiple weeks. So the week is getting weaker there. Stroud was running for his life all day against the Los Angeles Rams. He was sacked 3 times, threw an interception, which, I mean, to be fair to Stroud, that was just an incredible defensive play. Might be interception of the year already in week 1. But Evan, what do the Bucs need to do in this game in order to finally snap the primetime losing streak and start 2-0 for the 5th consecutive season?
What they need to do is grind this one out. What's crazy is you look at the offensive numbers from the Bucs and the Texans from week 1, almost identical.
Mm-hmm.
Both play 4.6 yards per play. I think the Texans had 260. The Bucs had 265. The Buccaneers had a better third down conversion percentage. The Texans were horrendous with their penalties. The Texans had 2 turnovers. The Bucs didn't have any. So, very similar vibes for the Texans as with the Buccaneers when looking at their offenses and what was happening there. First off, you kind of mentioned it, like the Texans are going to win games, certainly at least early on, with their defense. This is an elite defense. You look at the personnel on this defense from all 3 levels, like holy smokes, what a group that DeMeco Ryans has over there. And that should scare the bejesus out of Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers, because operation wasn't 100% savvy in Atlanta. And now you got to go back on the road, back-to-back weeks in prime time, and go up against a team that felt like they could have won that game in LA, and certainly a defense that was, for most of it, against a Sean McVay group entering week 1, like they really put the clamps down on those guys, except for Puka, who went off.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, I mean, geez, someone's got to step into that role for the Buccaneers this week. Having said that, the Texans should be scared of the Buccaneers defense as well. They don't have Kate Stover. They lost your center. Their offensive line was already a mess. It's Christian Kirk, I don't know, is going to be ready to play in this contest.
I don't think so.
I don't think he's going to be able to. We'll see how that goes on, but it's really kind of like Nico Collins and everybody else. It's funny because the first time we saw this matchup, it was a complete shootout and a brutal L for the Bucs. And I think we're going to get the reverse. We're going to get just a grinder. So I think that the way to win this game is protect the football, no penalties. Like, cliche, I get it. But seriously, like, just don't beat yourselves. If you got to play the punting game back and forth, that's okay. Like, trust your defense to get something going for you guys and be able to make it happen. But I do believe that on paper, the Bucs offense is going to be able to at least chip away a little bit more than what the Texans offense should be able to do against the Bucs. And I get it. I'm out here on a limb still backing this Bucs defense, but I just think like Houston is in trouble with this defensive front. Like Vea, Diaby, Cansey, especially in the interior, like I don't know. So I think this game is going to be decided by just the smallest of variables, and that means just not doing something stupid. And Baker got bailed out of a couple of really bad interceptions in Atlanta that could have happened, and those mistakes cannot happen against this team because Houston will be opportunistic. They will pick those off, and they will take it to the house. So, I mean, there is a thin margin here of success, and I think that for both teams. And so, yeah, you gotta make sure you're doing the simple fact, and that's why the Bucs were able to win last week. Is they didn't turn the ball over. They didn't have. It was choppy at the beginning, but the penalties were mitigated. A lot of things that they can control, they controlled, even if it wasn't pretty, and that's the formula going into Houston.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned not beating yourself. We could talk about the Bucs having 2 roughing the passer penalties in the same drive against the Falcons, and that ending up, in a touchdown drive for Atlanta. Houston had 11 penalties against the Rams. They did a lot of beating themselves, turned the ball over twice. And I'm with you. You know, if Christian Kirk doesn't play, and then you got Nico, and then you have a couple of rookies in Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, you know, they don't have Mixon, so they're looking to Chubb and former Buck Dare Agunbowale, you know, to anchor that running game. It could get real interesting. I think you're right. I don't know what the over-under is off the top of my head.
42 and a half last I checked.
42 and a half. So, yeah, I mean, we could be looking at another under game. And you know what? I'll take a nasty, ugly, grinded out, low-scoring 20-17 kind of game on Monday night if the Bucs can end up getting a win out of it, because the Texans, you know, as good as that defense is, that offense is certainly beatable with all of the problems that they have in the trenches.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I don't want to give too much away from my prediction of the game, so I'll save my my thoughts there.
All right, well, then we will go ahead and get to it. That crystal ball is getting bust back out. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel is where I always go to place my parlays, my prop bets, my game bets for just about every sport, and it definitely adds a little spice to your NFL Sundays. Right now, the Buccaneers are 2.5-point underdogs on the road in Houston against the 0-1 Texans with an over-under of 42.5, while the Buccaneers' odds to win the NFC South have jumped to minus 170. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Wrapping things up here on a WTSP edition of Locked On Bucs, and it is time for Klosky's crystal ball. I need to talk to the graphics guy. We need a Klosky's crystal ball graphic with you like hovering over top of it. You know, somebody get on that. Somebody who's good at Photoshop. I need you to make a Klosky's crystal ball graphic for this segment. But we're going to talk about your bold prediction, your player prediction, your score prediction. Let's kick things off with your bold, which did not go well in Atlanta. Are we going to double down? Are we going to switch sides of the ball? What are we doing here?
Didn't get the pick six. Sad face.
Didn't get the pick at all.
Yeah, you're right. Should have. But yeah, I'm gonna go in a different direction here. I don't think the Houston Texans are gonna run for more than I guess I gotta. Man, Stroud's probably gonna do it. Screw it. 40 yards. They're not gonna run for more than 40 yards. Yeah.
Why?
Stroud might screw me, but I do not think that Chubb or Agunbowale are going to get more than 40 yards against the Buccaneers. I think that is a situation you do not want to go up against if you're Houston. And I imagine them to pull out the Atlanta Falcons game plan, get the ball out fast, utilize people in open space, work kind of horizontally versus north and south, which the Falcons try to do, and they were terrible at it. I don't know if entering this week with your issues on the offensive line, if you want to say, hey, I mean, you got to run the ball, but I think you just got to run it to show it, to make everything else kind of happen. I see a lot of trouble for the Texans running the football.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's a bold prediction, so, why not?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Against the Rams, 27 carries for 114 yards as a team. Chubb had 60 yards, Stroud had 32, and then they had like 5 other people in single digits. So I like it. If you can keep their entire team to 40 rushing yards or less and make them that one-dimensional, that's when you can really take advantage of that offensive line and send all the blitzes. All right. Your predictive player of the game, who's going to explode in this one?
For the Buccaneers, I'm going to say my player of the game will be Yaya Diaby, a pair of sacks. He almost had one in Atlanta. Hassan Reddick, what a great showing he had in week 1, certainly with the pressures. He got the sack on Penix Jr. It was interesting to me that watching the tape, the Falcons had a bit more of a chipping plan on Diaby than on Reddick, which maybe the Texans will show a little bit more respect to Reddick now after watching him week 1 and realizing he isn't the burnt toast that everyone saw in New York, and that situation was just bad from the beginning. So having factored that in, I just see I see Yaya doing some things. I'm a big believer in Yaya this season, and Monday night he'll be jazzed up. I can certainly see a couple of sacks from him.
Yeah,
Cansey was my other option. I kind of flip-flopped on that one.
Oh, and Cansey was an absolute beast on Sunday.
Yeah. Again, with what's going up there in the middle, certainly I'm not going to complain if anybody thinks, I think Cansey's going to do more than Diaby. Like I was right 50-50 on that one.
I mean, he could end up with more tackles. He could end up a bigger factor in the run game, but we all know the sacks are going to get the headline. So if Diaby has a pair, then that's all everyone is going to talk about. And I mentioned it on Twitter on Reddick's sack. The dude ran through 2 tackles, like literally being tackled in order to get that sack. So yeah. And credit to Rick Stroud. I heard him mention on Monday that, even though Reddick didn't have overwhelming numbers, he got the sack. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, he got 1 sack. Well, if he gets 1 a week, you're talking about a potential defensive player of the year nominee. But the fact that Atlanta didn't run the ball well showed how good he and Yaya were on those edges and containing, the run game that way.
And the way they utilized Reddick was really creative. I mean, he wasn't just hanging out there on the edge. He was a dropper, They kind of moved him around on what his roles were, and that's awesome to see.
Yep. All right, so we have the Texans not being able to run the ball at all. We got Yaya Diaby living in C.J. Stroud's nightmares like he's Myles Garrett in Joe Burrow's nightmares. Guessing you're calling for this streak to end, and the Bucs finally reward those of us that stay up late on a Monday night to watch them. What is your score prediction?
Not quite.
Oh, geez, here we go.
Yeah. It's one of those situations. I've been down this road many a times before with my predictions. Until you do it, I gotta roll with what the trend is. So until the Bucs prove they can win in prime time, in the regular season, that is, then I gotta pick Houston. I just, and they prove me wrong, but we've been down this road. The fact is, I have this game 1916 Texans. Very weird, a lot of field goals, a lot of a chunk play here or there, and then it stalls out sort of deal. I think the game's going to come down to 1 or 2 mistakes, and the Texans will be home. They're coming off of a loss. They're coming off of a lot of penalties, a couple of turnovers. C.J. Stroud called them out after the game, saying we got to practice better. Like, they're coming in very motivated to fix whatever the heck went wrong in L.A. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers, it's always better to learn from a win than a loss, but sometimes you got to lose to be like, hey, we got a problem here a little bit. And I just think we're going to see much of the same, where it's a little bit disjointed. DeMeco Ryans is one of the best first half coaches in the league, like betting his team, like betting other teams under versus DeMeco Ryans in the first half has been like a very successful bet going back to last year. I think that the Bucs are going to start really slow. I think they're going to pick it up as the game goes on, but I'm worried that them starting slow is going to give the Texans a 13-3 lead entering halftime, something like that. And then you're playing from behind against a defense that is so stinking good, and you're just not going to quite get across the finish line. So 19-16, Houston Texans. Bucs move to 1-1, bring them back home, get right game against the Jets.
All right. Well, it's on me. I forgot to check in with you before I went live for the final preview.
But our show was also later in the week. This time I need you to check.
That is true.
Yeah.
But the final preview episode for this one is going to be on Monday. So I will check in with you over the weekend.
Yep.
See if you've changed your mind, because of course we got to work with, upcoming injury reports and changes there. And there's going to be other factors that'll play into this. So I'll give you a chance to fix this. But as of now, Evan is picking the Texans to win.
Just remember, James is going to pick the Buccaneers to win every game. They're going to go 17-0. At least you get objective. You get unbiased opinion here.
I didn't pick them to win every game last year. In fact, I was gonna pick the Falcons to win Week 1.
Really?
Yes, I mentioned this on the crossover. I mentioned it when we did our divisional preview. I was going to pick the Falcons Week 1, based strictly off the fact that the starting offense didn't see the field in preseason, and that made me really uncomfortable. Then I found out that Michael Penix also did not
I was going to say they did
preseason snaps, and I was like, okay, well then I'm going to default back to Baker. But yeah, I was real close to picking the Falcons to win.
You going Texans?
I don't know yet, but I don't have to make my decision until Sunday. But
when given a chance, I will always give crap to James. It's just how it works.
It is. I mean, I'm going to pick them to lose to the 49ers if they have a roster still at that point.
Yeah. I hear they're looking for bodies.
We'll get to that later on in the season. All right, Evan, what do we have going on over at 10 Tampa Bay, 10tampabay.com, and the 10 Tampa Bay Plus app?
Same old Ultimate Florida Sports Show on 10 Tampa Bay Plus. That first airs on Thursdays at 7 o'clock. The Blitz is back. We had our first episode last week. James with his Locked On Bucs burning question of the week. Once again, we're back in the fold here. We're getting those up as soon as we can on Fridays. Typically, it's Friday night, but you should be able to find that on our YouTube page. You can watch it on 10 Tampa Bay Sundays at 7:30, 8:30. You can find it on 10 Tampa Bay Plus. You just got to scroll over to the sports section. We're working on it right now. There's the Locked On Bucs stuff in the queue, and then it's right under that. So just make sure you keep scrolling down if you're on 10 Tampa Bay Plus. But everything's there, and full steam ahead to this game on Monday night.
All right. Make sure you're checking out everything that Evan is doing over there. Please make sure that you are following on YouTube with the notifications turned on, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at Yarcho_Bucs, at eCloskey WTSP, Instagram, TikTok at Locked On Bucs in both of those spots. Become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs. If you want to support the show, but you don't want to be an insider, it's real easy. Like this episode on YouTube. Leave a 5-star review wherever you get podcasts. It does help other Buccaneers fans find the show. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Want to thank you so much for joining us right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.